So far, I guess we've talked to some of the more technical aspects of corporate governance. I've given you a little bit of information about the director's responsibilities, roles of the board, the ASX principles, and some generic corporate governance and ethics information. We have touched on the code of conduct, which is specific to MPB, but I wanted now to present a little bit of information about the corporate governance principles from ASX and how Purple Bicycle has adopted or implemented, if you like, some of those principles. So the chart you have on your screen, the table you have on your screen, matches, if you like, the core artifacts of our corporate governance approach and framework back to the principles. And I think that's really important because it gives you a sense that we have gone through these principles in detail. We have built a lot of our infrastructure and frameworks around those things. And I've specifically pulled out the documents and artifacts that relate back to that. We have a very comprehensive corporate governance framework and approach. I think it's well documented. I think it's well understood, and I think it's very actively lived and breathed throughout the organisation, if you like. So if we look at the ones we covered off on today, with the principle one is really relating back to the solid foundations of an organisation. We do have a constitution. We have a very extensive board charter that talks about how the board will work together. Part of that is ensuring that everyone has the right to challenge. These are the kind of ethical bad behaviours we saw in some major corporate failures. So the board charter helps put that in place for especially new directors such as yourselves, how you're going to behave in the board. It's a great healthy document, and the board proactively refines and lives that document really well. We do have a remuneration policy and committee again, so there's lots of transparency and oversight in terms of how we do things around here, and all of that stuff is available to you as the senior leadership team and the new directors, of course. The board structure, we've got the board charter, we have a nomination committee in place, which is essentially a way of ensuring we have transparency and a process to be followed for who gets onto the board. Obviously, some of you have been exposed to that quite recently with your appointments. The ethical and responsible decision making, the one I have spent a little bit of time on today. We do have the code of conduct. It incorporates our whistleblower policy, which is around if you feel people aren't living the code of conduct, if you feel people aren't behaving ethically, there is a process that you can follow to get that escalated, to even seek clarification. It may be misunderstanding, it may be something that was unclear to either you or the other individual. There's a process for handling that. That's really important because it shows there's a completion of that loop, not just a document that sits on the shelf and gathers dust. We have our risk appetite statement, which also ties into one of the other principles, Principle 7. Risk appetite is how the board defines their level of risk they're prepared to take. So there are some activities they undertake every 6 months to have a look at where they're sitting risk-wise. This is very much a how thing. So what do they feel comfortable with? What's too far for them? What's within their appetite to take? This flows into the risk management framework, which flows into then the policies and processes in place at Purple Bicycle. Financial reporting, timely and balanced disclosures, so principles 4 and 5. Lots of roles around the second and third line of defence function there, so the risk and audit functions within the organisation, helping to ensure the corporate governance aspects are fully covered. Board audit committees, we also have a board risk committee relating to the managed risk principle. We have a shareholder communication plan in place which manages how we deal with our shareholders ongoing to ensure we're doing that openly and transparently. That's Principle 6. And jumping down to Principle 8 there, remunerate fairly. I did mention the remuneration committee as well. So we've approached this quite seriously. We have built specific artifacts relating directly back to the principles, and I thought that this was a nice way for those of you that are fairly new to this concept within Purple Bicycle especially to see how we've actually done that. I think it's quite a conclusive corporate governance framework that we have in place, and this is just, as I said before, scratching the tip of the iceberg, but it's a nice way of summarising it for us.